Hello, this is Mr. Fleming, and this video is for my 7th and 8th grade class. It is January 11th, and you guys should have a piece done today. We should have a critique, and we can't have one that's clear, but we'll be moving on. But I want to review the project, and I have done the project here, so we have something to critique. Specifically, we were talking about cartoons in our class, and we just finished up a project in which we had to show the 4 emotions, and you guys did a great job. And we also did a 4-panel cartoon. And we talked about the lettering and how it really is important to print your words out. It's not that you don't have nice handwriting or it's not legible enough. It's just when you're working on a piece of art, you've got to make sure that it's extremely legible and that your audience can read it instantaneously. And printing out the words are just a lot easier than trying to freehand everything. Now, we talked about the project was going to make sure you decide whether you're going to go vertical or horizontal, but we talked about we're going to use the elements of art, line and shape, to create movement. Now, movement is a principle of art, and we have talked about that, I think, pretty well. That you guys know that we'll always be talking about an element of art that creates a principle of art. Now we're using line to create movement, but we should always be able to answer that question. What element are we using? What principle are we trying to create? So here is the rough for the movement one, in which we have the cartoon. We have a figure way back there in the background, moving to our midground, closer to our foreground, and then breaking out of our foreground. Now we did this with the Christmas drawing. In fact, I think all our drawings pretty much establishing space has been a theme. So I'm going to move in closer here, and you can see here with the words that I've actually blocked out each letter and the space between the letters and the space between the lines. That's called kerning and letting. But do notice also there's a rectangle inside that speech bubble, and that just makes sure that I know exactly where the letters are going to end and start, so there's no overlapping. That piece has to be worked out pretty well beforehand. We talked about different speech bubbles where we could use in there, and that's important too. Now I'm going to bring this up here. This is, you don't have to worry about this too much, but there are different fonts you can use. Now the one I suggested was actually Helvetica or Arial. This is Comic Sans. That's the most typical one used in comics. Over here is Joker Man. It's just a very stylized font. When you use the word font, you're talking about the different shapes of the letters. Kerning and letting, don't worry about it too much. Kerning is the space between the letters, and letting is the space between the lines. Now, the space between the letters are not as easy as just the same equal space. If you put an I next to a T, that's different than putting an I next to a K. I'm not going to say anything more about that. Don't worry about that, okay? Let's take a look at our product. This is the piece I did, and there are things I like and things I don't like. Well, first of all, make sure you recognize the lettering and the centering of it. That's important. But also pay attention to the atmospheric perspective. It's very simple and it's reductive, but it is definitely something I want you to pay attention to. Dark blue to a light blue, that's gradation of tone. Dark green to a light green, that's gradation of tone. That is creating space before I do any line work. Here the figure is very, very small. It gets larger, he gets larger, and now he comes through the picture plane and screams, "Okay, boomer." And that is something I hear all day long. I find it very cute, so it doesn't really bother me. Now this is another one we talked about in class, and this one is on 1 panel. We're not using 4 panels, but I still want movement. So I have my rough sketch here. There's my thumbnail, there's my rough, and I'm working out my color. I do a couple color studies, I choose it, I play with the color. The big difference here is there is no black in this one. I'm not using any black at all. But I have the rays coming in front and drifting off. I have a lot more space over here, which helps emphasize the movement. I wish it was a little bit low, but that still works okay for me. But the movement is the key. Here I am using shape and line to create movement. Over here, I really am just using line. I guess I'm using gradation of tone also to create space, but the movement's happening with the line and the shape getting larger and coming into the foreground. So that was the project. That should be done, and that's how every project will be done in the classroom. Thumbnails, rough, final draft. Check out my next video to find what we're going to do for our next project. make art, because art won't make itself. Bye-bye.